Good evening, all. Thank you, Muatan, and thank you, Berzat University, for this um, uh, for inviting me and for this important topic of the title for this conference. Although the feeling is increasing not only to Palestinians only, but also in particular for Palestinians, but in general, many people still seek and look for the update to get the freedoms because there are spaces that are shrinking. Spaces of political work, and this is for political and reasons, the manipulation, monopolization of the press, and the ability of a limited number of people to be able to govern and control in what can be said politically. I've selected to, and in the new definition, and I here confirm the word definition of anti-Semitism that was adopted by what's called IHRA, International, the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance. It is a body that emanated from a resolution that was basically from the UN to form a relevant committee. It started in Stockholm and it remained for 10 years in debates, and then it approved this definition by 2016. And since then, and I've noted since then up to now, this definition. I've been following up on it, and I've engaged with others, and that this will be, and I agreed with others that this will limit the political work of Palestinians. This definition, and regretfully, the days have proved that this definition has become a knife that stabs the Palestinian political action in Palestine or elsewhere, and it's a knife that stabbing the consolidating forces with Palestinian people. And I will, and a part of this, I would like to say, I would like to explain the dangers before even going into the depth of the definition. There's a feeling that is unjustified by not having a camp focused, systemized, a coordinated campaign on the Palestinian level, international level in this field. This definition that was adopted by the IHR. It has it's ambiguous, or in the description of this tight definition, it's not complying legally. And what's called soft law, it's the soft law, the law that when there's no need that it should be passed in a parliament. Therefore, it does not comply to constitutional reviews, and that its articles should be in line with the Constitution. Therefore, there is this retreat by many parliamentarians or politicians or workers in this field to deal with it as a law because it's a soft law that it will not have any impact on the real life, and it's just a symbolic declaration. But even if this declaration was so soft, yet it's creating a very harsh reality. And as we've noted, that since the approval and adoption of this definition, things are going into a different path day by day. Meaning that the parliament, for instance, the German parliament has taken a decision that in reality defines even worse than this. For instance, the German parliament considered the BDS as an anti-Semitic movement. France, the situation is worse. The parliament have passed a decision that anti-Zionism is same as anti-Semitism. In the USA, there are many universities that have adopted IHRA. The Minister of Culture and the American Minister of Culture has adopted this definition as well. The State Department has adopted it and has declared a while ago that according to this, with this, as a consequence to this definition, that it's considered that Human Rights Watch and Amnesty International are considered as anti-Semitism organizations, in addition to tens and if not hundreds of events, conferences, activities that show consolidation with Palestinian people that are cancelled because in the pledge allege that they are anti-Semitism. Also, some scholars have been persecuted in this regard, and this is where it's important to refer to. And some might have been dismissed from the jobs, but even if they weren't, a professor at the university wasn't dismissed for this accusation. It's about what is the climate that is promoted in and in most of universities around the world, mainly in the US, France, UK, and Germany. These are the Western countries. And the climate that is growing and increasing is that stay away from anti-Semitism. No one should come closer to any problematic issues to them. This means this is self-censorship. This means that there's intimidation is being hovering to all who is thinking of supporting Palestinian people. So it's a new agenda, a new political agenda is coming up that seeks to keep everyone away from the agenda of Palestine. And one of the main goals for for this new Semitism or anti-Semitism definition, and I would say that Palestine and some ethical achievements that the case of Palestine had made. It was because due to the BDS activity, but something important and major that was focused from on this movement is that every time there was a talk about occupation, about displacement, of confiscation, killing, or any Palestinian human rights, the discussion would turn away right away from being the focus on Palestine to be about anti-Semitism. So the discussion, instead of the focus on Palestinian human rights, it would be like, is it in the first place, is it okay to tackle such issues, whether the right of return and the end of occupation, and any other things. So these issues, were they legitimate to be discussed, because discussing such topics could be considered as anti-Semitic. Therefore, this the objective then is to suffocate any potential to discuss the Palestinian case, and to mobilize those who are supporting it, and to set it in a continuous setting and as a self-defense rather than to be the attack or the accusation against the Israeli practices. So a Palestinian would find himself that always in a defensive position to and prove him that would permit him to open the floor for discussion. Floor for discussion would always be locked until a commission or a group, a European group, that would allow that person or that thing to go into discussion after they make sure that it's not contaminated with this disease of anti-Semitism. Uh, no doubt, this this obstructs the Palestinian political movement, and Israel for sure systematically and strategically tries to outreach to all universities, all committees, all institutions, one by one, state by state. And available information that we have is that Israel is now seeks to take an unprecedented step, which is to approach the UN Security Council to issue a declaration that would adopt the IHRA for Semitism. This is very grave. And I've heard some Palestinians, friends, close friends, and scholars and thinkers think that whatever the UN decides, we don't care. Well, actually, the UN sent resolutions 242 and others, and we don't care. But I think this is a wrong approach. UN resolutions and what is called the international legitimacy and on certain topics in itself will never form any guarantee to any people to do any to have any achievement. Nothing would work if people don't consolidate with you. However, and on the other hand, if morally and physically there was this consolidation, this might lead to accomplishments. Till this day, we're still weak in front of Israel compared to Israel on the military side, politically, and so on. But we had a moral support that supported us. Passing a resolution by the UN is a moral strike against Palestinian people. And it is a moral strike to all associations that support the Palestinian case and his its legitimate rights. And like Human Rights Watch, Oxfam, and Amnesty International, these three organizations, the State Department, the U.S. State Department had proposed that these should be labeled as anti-Semitism, Semitic organizations. So this is a battle that we need to fight, and that's why I'm from those people who say we cannot turn our back to such a topic because this will touch each of us. In Germany now, there's no way to conduct any forum, any lecture, even in the U.S. The cases where in instances where there was a presentation of allegations against the programs or lectures, you would not believe how much. If, for instance, a senator have said that just using the word of the word Palestine in description, like describing from the sea to the river, is anti-Semitic, or the upper tight wall is anti-Semitic, or the lighting of candles in the Gaza during Gaza in aggression. This is anti-Semitic. Yazan Khalili, because he had worked in a Sakakini institution and in Sakakini. So this is absurd. So a Palestinian now cannot open her mouth, or else they'll be labeled by anti-Semitic. Some and two additional words that I like to say about the definition itself and why this definition is really dangerous. The definition itself in IHRA is has a short definition and then examples. The definition itself we might agree on. We as Palestinians and as Democrats and as ethical people, we're against uh, attacking any as a Jew in the world or that would or to harm anyone. But so definition it and about this definition, it's not the definition itself that is problematic. It's the examples that are embedded with this definition. Um, um, and here are some examples. One of the examples, for instance, I will just give two examples. The to criticize Israel that exceeds the criticism of if the same person criticizes Israel in an unbalanced way as he criticizes other nations that practice the same crimes or same discriminatory policies. This he would be labeled as anti-Semitic. So Israel should be seen as other and treated as other nations. So this potentially will make that anyone who would dare to criticize Israel to be accused as anti-Semitic. And the basic thing that I believe in, and that's the more difficult example, which is dangerous not only to Palestine but on the whole human rights uh, metrics. It's that whoever considers Israel as a discriminatory project or negates the Jewish people to determine their destiny means he is anti-Semitic. So, and if we don't want to acknowledge the right of Jews in self-determination, well, this does not necessarily mean the right of a state, of having a state. So, is it as if you don't? Is it too much for them to have their own autonomy as Israelis? So, the definition does not define what is meant by autonomy, and actually. The more popular definition is the right to having a state, to control its borders, and the sovereignty in this state. And with all this, there's the right of the state to control the immigration laws. Like who are the people who have the right to live within the borders of the state? So no one can impose on a state to that. So this is part of the sovereignty that a state would decide who its people are. And if we consider the right of autonomy and self-determination, this means clearly that the right of Israel not to make any demographic change, that meaning that the return of refugees, regardless of their number, should not change. What does this mean? This means that demanding the right of return is and in itself is an anti-Semitic position. What does this mean? This means that Israel has the right to make a demographic change. This is in a diplomatic language, and in a harsher language means that Israel has the right to expel Palestinians from their own land. And then, if Palestinians demand that they go back to their own land, they would be counted as anti Semitic. We have a document that claims that it's the document or that it forms part of the human rights system, which stipulates that Israel has the right to do ethnic cleansing crime. This is not only a catastrophe to Palestinians, but it's a catastrophe to the whole human rights system. So this is a model, one model, and I've here put a question mark among many other question marks that raise many questions and that are considered as an obstacle, and that and that transforms Palestinians from being in a accused person to someone who wants to defend him or herself in order to be able to talk. And with this, I finish, and I think it's